Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you want to see how I transform this into this, keep on watching. Hey guys, so what you're going to need for this project is just a regular paintbrush, a little paintbrush for like the smaller areas and the corners, a big paintbrush for the bigger areas, and those are both chalk paintbrushes. Then you'll need a stirrer to stir the paint really good, a screwdriver for the hardware, and then a sanding block for the distressing part. We're also going to be using this cleaner just to prep and clean the surface from any grime. And the chalk paint that we're going to be using is by Annie Sloan. It's in the shade Paris Gray. And what I like to do is just turn that upside down just to get any residue back to the top of the can. Now what I'm doing is just simply removing the hardware with that screwdriver, and then I tried to take the drawer out, but I noticed that it doesn't come out, so I just had to work around that and just paint around it. Now I am spraying the full piece down, just making sure there's no dirt or residue. With chalk paint you don't have to sand it, which is why I love chalk paint, and so I'm just making sure it's wiped down really good. So you always want to make sure you stir the paint really well. And now we're just going to start painting with big brush strokes. With chalk paint it's super forgiving, so you don't have to worry about how you're painting. Just put it on there every which way and it honestly levels itself out. That's why I love working with chalk paint. It's super easy to work with. As you can see, chalk paint is super full coverage. Depending on the piece, you can usually cover the full piece with one coat, but I am going to do some distressing, so I usually do a second coat just to be safe. Also, if you guys were wondering, I am not in a dungeon. I am in my basement on the other side where the washer and dryer is, so kind of looks a little scary, but it's not, I promise. So guys, this is the first full coat. It's still drying down a little bit, but it looks super good for just one coat. We're going to wait about 30 minutes and then we're going to do a second coat. So with the second coat, I do like to pay a little bit closer attention to my brush strokes. This will be your final coat, and even though the chalk paint will kind of level itself out, I still am kind of a neat freak and I just want to make sure that it'll look overall polished once we're done. You'll notice right here that I am going to take the little brush to get into the tighter spaces so that I don't make a mess with the big brush, but if you do make a mess, you can use water to clean up behind chalk paint. Now it is time for the fun part. What I'm doing here is using my sand block that I got from the Dollar Tree to distress my piece. When it comes to the distressing part, what I go for is the parts that would naturally have wear and tear on furniture. So like the corners, the edges of the drawer from opening and closing the drawer, and then like the part where the handle is gonna go. we are all done with the distressing part. It turned out super rustic chic. I love it. Now all we have to do is the top coat. The top coat that we're going to be using today is the water-based polyacrylic by Minwax in the finish clear satin. Now, a lot of people do use wax to protect their pieces, their chalk paint pieces. Chalk paint pop to poop pop pop pieces. Anyway, I, however, think it's a little bit faster to use the polyacrylic, just because you just brush it on, let it dry, and then do a second coat if you would like to, which is completely up to you. I am going to do a second coat just to make sure that it's protected at the top if I put drinks on there or anything like that. Now, when it comes to applying the top coat versus the chalk paint, you do want to be a little bit more careful and cautious with your brush strokes so that they're consistent, because when it dries, if you weren't consistent, you'll be able to see the texture of the brush strokes on your piece. Now we are going to go back in with our 220 grit sandpaper, wrap it around our sand block, and sand down the piece before we apply that second coat of polyacrylic. I did let the piece dry for about 2 hours before I went in to sand anything, but what the sanding is going to do is just make that second coat adhere better to the piece. Last step, you guys. So this is our very last coat of polyacrylic. Now, after this, you are supposed to wait at least another 2 hours to let this dry before you put the hardware back in, but I'm not going to do that because I'm too eager to put it back in and see what the piece looks like. So yeah, so we're almost done, you guys. Alrighty guys, now all we have left to do is just to put this hardware back on. We are just taking the screwdriver, screwing it back in, making sure it's secure, and we are steps away from seeing our finished product. So guys, this is what our piece looked like before we put our hands to it, and this is what it's looking like now. Alrighty guys, that is the end of this video. Please give it a big thumbs up. I just want to thank you guys so much for tuning in and coming back to see me. If you guys enjoy this video, please give it a big thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.